get to be any little thing that we want to be. No matter what comes our way, we'll be together, together.
Welcome to Homeschooling Down South. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Kat. We're two Southern homeschooling mamas sharing real talk, resources, and inspiration for life and learning in the Southeast.
Each week, we'll chat with inspiring voices in the homeschool community, highlight must-see nature spots and field trip gems, and share resources from across the region.
Whether you're new to homeschooling or a seasoned pro, pull up a chair and join us as we celebrate the joy, freedom, and community of homeschooling down south.
We'll laugh together, we'll learn together, find the joys in life together, give each other grace and space to be.
Welcome back to the podcast. We are so excited this week. We have Angela Pilcher from Unite Homeschool here in Northwest Georgia, and we cannot wait to learn more about Unite. Welcome, Angela.
Hello, I'm glad to be here.
So we want to hear all kinds of information about Unite, but first we want to hear a little bit about you. So tell us, how did you end up on a homeschooling journey?
Sure, yeah. Well, I remember when I was about in the second grade, the lady who used to watch my brother and I after school was homeschooling her children. And I remember being so jealous of my friends that got to be at home with their mom and going to the park in the middle of the day to fly the kite that they had tried to build and to play games together. And they just seemed to be able to read the most interesting books and do all the most interesting crafts. And I had to go to school and sit at a desk and be quiet all day long. And so I remember being really jealous of them and thinking, that's what I want to do when I grow up. And so it's not that surprising that when we had our children and they were approaching school age, it was something that was heavy on my heart. And so I ended up putting aside my career as a software consultant and project manager and staying home with my kids. And I have not regretted it one bit. I think it has been the most amazing gift. And just the ability to spend the days with them and to help disciple their hearts and grow. I know that my faith has grown just through homeschooling, and I hope that it's been growing in their hearts too. I believe it has, but I think it's just such a gift to be able to homeschool our children. My children are currently in the 10th grade and the 6th grade, and we have been homeschooling all the way since the beginning. My oldest son is all the way from the very beginning. He's always been really eager to learn. And so as a youngster, he started reading very early. We literally just played with letters and numbers, and he was reading chapter books before he was old enough to go to kindergarten, which is really unusual. Please don't anybody compare their children to that, because it's an impossible goal. And it should not ever be a goal, but that's just where he was. And so we decided to go ahead and just do kindergarten at home and enjoy learning and growing. And that was something that my husband was not 100% sure about, because he grew up in England, and homeschooling was not something anyone did in England, especially back when we were all in school.
Sure.
And so he was like, what in the world is this homeschooling thing? And so we literally just played through that first kindergarten year. And when we sat down towards the end of that year to decide if we were going to enroll him in a brick and mortar program for his official kindergarten, my husband said, well, he would actually be a behavior problem now, because he's too far both in math and reading, because you've just played very intentionally. And I said, yeah, that's probably true. So he, from that point, was, I think, one of my biggest cheerleaders. And then when it came time for our second son to start a somewhat more formal program, he was still on board. And I think there's been a lot of growth in his understanding about what a customized education can look like, and how each child can be really just fostered and developed based on their leanings, and also to help develop their weaknesses, because if we allow their weaknesses to stay weak, then they're not going to be as well prepared. And so by recognizing what those are early, we can just help to foster a little bit of growth in those areas and be a little bit more intentional with our days.
It's very cool. Can you tell us a little bit what those days look like? What does the flow, the rhythm of your days feel like?
Well, much different now that we have Unite in the mix of it all. But the early days were amazing. And I still hold on to some of those treasures. So I actually read to my kids pretty much every day possible, even in the middle of their high school things and their all that I juggle for the network. We carve out a good at least 30 minutes most days of the week. Well, most weekdays. We don't always do it on the weekends, but sometimes we do. And so some of the things that we love to read together would be some of the missionary biographies. I'm really into a lot of living books. Historical fiction is one of our favorites. And normally I'll have at least two books going. I like to have one historical fiction and one missionary biography kind of in the mix together. And I don't generally plan them massively about what we're studying. There's usually some chronological plan based on the history that we're reading for the year, but honestly, I just pick some books and then it's amazing how the Lord just weaves themes into both of those books that often speak to our heart. Just based on what's happening within our own lives. And so it's really been neat to see how the Lord just uses the details that come from that reading time together.
When do you normally do your reading time? Is it like a first thing in the morning, you read one, and then maybe after dinner you read another? How do you decide when to do that?
Well, it does vary a little bit based on our day. For the most part, I will try to eat breakfast before they do. And they'll either be making their breakfast or eating their breakfast while I start the first book. And we really just read straight through. We do during breakfast and then for 30-ish minutes, maybe a little longer afterward, we'll read together. And then they can move on to some of their independent studies, or if they have things that we need to work on together, I can break off with one or both of them. And so that's generally how we start our day. We will also have many times if there's been something happening in the morning that we didn't get to read, we'll do that after lunch. Or if there's a field trip, it might get pushed even later in the day or to the Saturday after. But we just, I think it's really healthy, even with high schoolers, to be reading to them because it creates a shared experience and it allows you to choose a few things that maybe they wouldn't have picked for themselves and to just discuss the things that you come across because, whether it's reading about Joni Eareckson Tada and the struggles that she had to go through, or, Brother Andrew and the ways that he walked through some really daunting situations, it just helps them to think through, well, how would I react in that situation? And, would my heart be able to withstand the pressures that they went through? And it's just, I think it creates a lot of thanksgiving in our hearts to read about some of the situations that others have gone through ahead of us.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm curious, you said in the early days it was different than now that you have Unite. At what point in your homeschool journey did Unite become and how did it happen?
Sure. So, I inherited a small, somewhat active Facebook group about 12 years ago. Gosh, was it that long ago? It might not have been quite that long ago, but it was a while ago now. And we did a lot of field trips and parties and things with that little group. As we were kind of maturing as a small group, I really felt like the Lord was saying that we needed to take it off of Facebook, that Facebook was not a healthy place for homeschool mamas to be hanging out, and that I was to steward this group. And so I didn't really know what that looked like. And my biggest questions had to do with a lot of the technology and how can we make sure that it's safe and not censored, and that we don't necessarily have, you know, creepers come into the park to watch us or any, because if you put your calendar publicly visible, anybody can show up, right? And so I didn't want to invite, 50 kids to come play water gun wars and then have some random dude there. So, you know, I really wanted to have a calendar that was privately managed, but that we could still open up to the homeschool community. And so we launched our little app that we've got on a platform where I am the customer. Our organization pays for their services, and there is a paywall, which actually means that our members have all chosen specifically to be there. We're not going to get a lot of folks that want to come to stir up trouble. And so that's actually been really helpful. And it has grown, I would say, we launched that app in February of 2021, and it has grown tremendously. And the folks that are on there now are just really wonderful. There's such supportive, community building minded people, and the friendships that we've created just within our little circles, whether it's folks that come by our library or that participate in the PE programs or come on field trips. It's just such a wonderful community. And I love that I get to meet them all. And I always, I feel like the Lord has gifted me with matchmaking capabilities. And so often I will meet one family and then I'll say, have you met this other family? And they meet, and it's like, my new best friend, right? And so
Oh,
it's just so wonderful to see that happening. And it just warms my heart to be able to help people find each other.
I think it's so cool that it started from a Facebook group, but you answered this call to steward it into something so much bigger because it started just locally where you are, north of Atlanta, but now Unite is in all sorts of communities. So tell us, what is the reach in Georgia that Unite has?
So our current reach is generally within about an hour of the Cherokee County area, but we do have a small and growing group that's all along the 85 side of Atlanta, the north kind of running between Commerce and say Duluth, I guess. There's not as many members on that side, but we do have field trips over in that area some, and we're planning homeschool resource fair for that side of town, I believe, this year. There's still a few things in the works for that, so I'm still hopeful. But we have all sorts of resources that can help families all around the area. Our PE program just doubled this year, and we now have a second location over in Kennesaw, and so that's been a really nice partnership to get launched over in the Kennesaw area. And we have a lot more Cobb County mamas getting plugged in that way. And we do have some families up in the Jasper area, up in Pickens, and there are some as far away as Rome even. So I'm
it's my
hopeful
neck of
that
the
we'll
woods.
have more. And, I think having leaders, anybody who has a passion to build community, we would love to get them plugged in and just activated in their community. We've got some infrastructure in place to make it really easy on them, whether it is a field trip plan or a party idea or having someone come out and do a workshop or a seminar. We've got lots of different opportunities that we just really need boots on the ground to help get that activated in their area. So we would love to talk with anybody who's got ideas for their own communities so that we can help it expand in their area too.
Thinking about that infrastructure as you were talking, I was wondering, what does that look like? So, you have the original Unite core group, but now there's these kind of chapters popping up. Are they doing their own things and doing the overall umbrella Unite stuff? Or is it, events are put out and even though you're in the Rome chapter, you may still go to the stuff in Cherokee? How does that work?
Sure. So the way that our network functions, it's a la carte anyway. So depending on what works for your schedule and what your family's interests are, you'd be able to go to the things that are most interesting to you. And so when a family joins the Unite network, They are automatically part of Unite Georgia because that's as far as our reach is at the moment. And so the most exciting field trips and parties and resources are posted to kind of that overarching Georgia umbrella. And some of the other things that are common amongst all homeschoolers, whether it's words of encouragement or, a book recommendation, those things are for everyone. But then we have another area that is for local community groups. And so we have some local community groups already set up, and most people who join their local community group as well, and they get to pick those groups. So they don't get automatically plugged into one. They have to go find the one that's common to where they live or that they're willing to drive to. So if they lived in, say, Dallas, Georgia, and they were willing to drive to Cobb County events, then they would easily be able to just pick that area.
That's awesome.
So you mentioned PE, which I think is like one of the core Unite programs, and field trips. But tell us, I know there's more. So
And there is,
there's
yes,
so much more.
there is. We we are a nonprofit organization, which just means that is a tax status, not a business plan, by the way. And our nonprofit mission is actually very gospel centered. We hope to help families draw closer to their Lord and Savior through interacting with others. And whether that is somebody who is already a Christian and needs to be encouraged or strengthened in their walk, or somebody who maybe doesn't have a personal relationship with their Lord, we would like them to just interact with the other families who do. And it's our prayer that many of them are going to come in contact with faith and see faith in action, because I really believe that when we are honestly serving the Lord very transparently, it's very attractive to those who are not doing that. And when we're honest about the struggles and then we see victory in our lives, people want that same peace and they want to see the Lord's power at work. And so that's really my prayer, is that a lot of families will find that they can very organically share their hope with others. Some of our other programs are our library. So we actually launched a homeschool resource center back last August, and that opened in the Canton, Holly Springs area. And it's very tiny right now. It's only 600 square feet, but it holds almost 4,000 books.
Wow.
And we have opened that up to the community. So they don't have to be members of the network to come and borrow books. They're able to just come and join the library and make an appointment with their family to come pick books that are going to be good for their children. We call our library the Good and the Virtuous Library because
Oh.
we know that the books that are in it are going to be healthy and wholesome for their kids and strengthen their faith. And so we want families that are maybe finding a lack of Christian resources to have access to those things. So that's the big part that I love. Our library is really just my current passion project, and our team that has been a big part of that. They're also bibliophiles. Just, yeah, we just love books, and so um, it's just really fun to get to find those treasures and then share them with the other families. There
I
was
I need to come so
Yes,
badly
please do.
because it
Yes.
sounds like just my dream.
It really is so much fun. And um, there's two stories I wanted to share. One, there's this cute little family. They have a daughter who's 5, and she has discovered some of her new interests. And so she came in the other day and she said, Miss Angela, do you have any books about butterflies? And I said, well, I don't know. Let me find out. So we did a little search on our website. You can actually look at the catalog and do a search and see which books have topics that you're interested in. And so I showed her how to do that. And we found her 4 books. One of them was just a very simple chapter book a leveled reader that she can go through with her mom. And then there were a couple of nonfiction books, but she was really excited to find those. And then I also wanted to share, I found recently we had been gifted very small, well, it was a pretty good sized donation, but it was a private family had gifted us a small donation so that we can order some missionary biographies. And so last fall, as we were getting the library launched, we had ordered 4 different sets of biography books from the YWAM Publishing Company. And so one of those sets, though, is called the International Adventures books. And I had never read any of them, but coming from YWAM, I thought that they probably would be quite appropriate for our library. And so we went ahead and ordered them as part of the bulk deal. Well, I I knew that some of the topics may have been slightly more, shall I say, mature for some of our families. And so we had not really put them out into main circulation. We had kind of set them to the side and said, families who were familiar with them could borrow them, but we wanted to read through some of them first. And so a couple of weeks ago, the Lord brought that series back to my mind, and I opened up the first one that came across, and I thought, oh, this is the book for me. And it was all about a man named Joe who he really was the mission launching person who he was the pioneer for IWAM's French speaking countries. And he was very active in getting the African mission to some of those French countries. He went over to the small islands out in the Pacific and launched missions over there. And it was just so encouraging to me as a mom and as a pioneer to read about this man who loved the Lord. The series is all written in the first person perspective by the missionary themselves, which allows it to be really personal and powerful because they can share about how the Holy Spirit has worked in their lives, and they share about their struggles and their victories from their own point of view, which is really, really amazing. It's basically testimonies in a book. And so I'm now reading number 3 of my, of the series that I'm really, really enjoying. It was just, even being really familiar with all of the books that we have, I'm still finding treasure. So that's
And
amazing.
this
I
passion
love it.
project of yours is now being a blessing to you. I think that's so beautiful.
It is. The Lord is good that way, isn't he?
Yeah, he definitely is.
When you answer that call, he's gonna he's gonna bless you back with it. It's incredible. And the library just sounds like not just a great resource, but also something that is like continuing to fuel your passion for this project that you have started and grown. And then just sometimes you need something fresh and new in the mix too. And so it's really cool that this library is like getting to fuel you as you continue this mission forward. It's really cool.
And I'm so impressed by, from a logistical standpoint, you've got this app, you've got this system at the library where you can, I'm just like, how do you do it all? I'm so impressed by it. It's just amazing from an organizational standpoint how you've put all of these things into place to make this thing run so well to the point that you can have these additional chapters.
It truly is. I have no idea how it happened, honestly. It's, it is really the Lord at work through me. And I try to take things one step at a time. My flesh often looks ahead 10, 20, 30 steps and gets overwhelmed. But if I live by, I believe it was Elizabeth Elliot that said to do the next right thing. And I really try to do that. When the enemy or my flesh or whatever it is that's like making me want to scream and pull my hair out and run away, hide. When I listen to that, it's not a good day. But when I set those things aside and I try to worship the Lord and just do the next right thing, things turn out much better. And one day at a time is truly my testimony, to not be overwhelmed with all of the details and to hold things really loosely, trusting that if I don't get to it today, it's probably not the Lord's will for today, and I need to make sure that my priorities are always aligned with His. And so that's where I try to stay.
That is some good word, Angela. And
Mhm.
I know there's someone listening right now who needed to hear that, but just in full transparency, just knowing what the conversations the two of us have been having over the last 24 hours, we both needed that from
Yes.
you today. So thank you for blessing us with that.
Well, if I'm totally transparent, I also need to hear it most days.
Well, that's a relief. We're all in that boat. So I think it's really cool that Unite offers so many things because it feels to me, and our exposure to Unite has been through the Southeast Homeschool Expo, visiting your sessions, visiting your booth, and learning about all that Unite offers. But I really do feel like anyone could hop onto the app and find something for them because there are so many different things. There's resources and there's talks, and there's one of the things that my son is 5, so we're just not there yet. But Unite offers a lot of the things that someone who's looking from the outside into homeschooling might say, oh, your child is missing out by not having that traditional experience. And Unite is providing that. Can you talk a little bit about some of those experiences that the kids get to have that they might not find somewhere else?
Absolutely. So, I keep going back to PE, but it truly is one of our staples because our children are at home and inside and probably on the screens a little too much. And PE has been really wonderful for on so many levels. The kids get to play and run around. They learn how to navigate social situations with people they don't know very well. They learn to listen to somebody other than their mom and to follow instructions. They get exposed to team building games. We're really intentional about how we structure each meeting of PE. We offer specific games that work on specific skills, and we always try to include some endurance and some team building. And so we're really intentional with that program, and it has been really great for my kids. And so actually, we have some students who started doing PE from kind of day one, back long before even Unite was a thing. And they are now in the older groups of the PE program. And so they're able to help with assistant coaching. And
That's
so
awesome.
when you graduate out of PE, all that means is that now your family gets to be free if you come back as an assistant coach.
Oh, I love
So,
that.
right. So the way that our program works is that if a parent is willing to coach, then all of their children will be free. And if a student is willing to help coach, then they get a sibling free. So it works out really well for the families, especially larger families, because even at our very, very affordable pricing, it is still really, it's just a really great opportunity for the community to feed itself and to grow together. Um, some of the other things that we do, we offer a science fair. We love challenging the kids to be creative. Traditionally, we have offered that in the fall, but this year we're actually moving that to the spring. We're hoping to incorporate that into the Atlanta Science Festival that happens each March. And so we're trying to confirm some locations and get those dates on their calendar also. But the way that the science fair works is the students very much like a traditional science fair, they're going to study something and they need to analyze it using the scientific method, and then they create a poster board and they take some pictures, and hopefully they'll bring in something to share that they've learned about whatever they studied. And then to be ready to discuss it with the judges. And we often get some really amazing prizes that are donated to be selected by the kids for their winning. We will often include a t-shirt and some other things that are just, fun to encourage those kids for for coming out and doing a good job. And we do get questions about whether or not the little kids are going to be competing against the high schoolers. No, we do divide it out so that kindergarten through second grade have their own category and their own winner. And then, of course, elementary and middle and high all have their own category. So there's there's winners at every level, and it's always really exciting to see the little kids looking around at some of the older projects and growing in their curiosity. And it's just a really fun time for everybody. Some of the other things that we offer, we do have a high school level beta club. If you're familiar with the National Beta Club, that is a leadership and service organization. And so our high schoolers are given the opportunity to do some community service projects with other teams and to accumulate those volunteer hours that look so great on an educational resume. And they are also invited to go along to the National Beta Conference that happens each year. There's one in Georgia that happens in Savannah. And so they can go and compete against other kids that are in the Beta Club in all sorts of categories. And so our club is excited about going to that as well. And we, of course, do formal events. We have had prom for the last 3 years, and anybody in the community that wants to be able to send their homeschool child to prom is invited to be able to come and participate in that. There's so many little tiny groups, a small co op of, 10 families, they could put on a prom if they wanted to, but that's a lot of work. And it doesn't make sense for there to be, 10, 12 little tiny proms when really we could have one amazing one. And so that's really what we're hoping to allow the small groups to be able to participate. So we don't require that a family be a member of Unite in order to come to some of these events, like the science fair or the prom. Those are community building. We allow anybody to come and be a part of those because we realize that some of those small groups, it doesn't make sense for them to try to put on a big event when it's just, a few families.
That's so cool. I don't think I realized that for some of those, you don't have to be a member. That's just so, again, like open hearted, really community building, focused on serving the community and meeting them in their needs. So that is awesome to know. I'm like in my brain thinking about the science fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of our winners last year was a young lady who drove down from, I think she was in North Bartow. So, and she doesn't come to our field trips necessarily normally, but she was excited about science fair. And so it's just so much fun to be able to encourage those kids in uh, just in going deeper in what they're studying.
That's great.
So, if someone goes to the Unite website, they sign up, they pay their money, what does that membership encompass?
Sure. So then the membership that you would register for on our website is access to our online network. And that behaves a little bit like Facebook does, but it is not social media at all. It is only homeschool families and it is only homeschool resources. And the way that that membership works is it's a monthly subscription. So if you try it out and you think, that's actually not really a good fit for us, you can cancel it at any time. But we hope that you'll come in and discover a lot of really great resources. Our events calendar is bursting at the seams. I really recommend that nobody try to go to everything because it's not possible.
It's really good advice.
You will not if you go to all of the events. But last in the 2024 calendar year, when we got to the end of the year, I looked at the statistics and we had held over 390 events in one calendar year.
Yes.
And so it's just, it's bigger than one person should ever try to do. And it's really amazing because our field trip program has launched so well. The way that our program works is that if a mom has a really great idea, and say she wants to go to the zoo and she wants to study about turtles because that's what her family is learning, right? she can submit a form to our field trip administrator, and our field trip administrator will set up all the details based on what her requested date was. We will collect the money. We will pay the zoo. We will then, the day before the field trip, we'll email her the list of the different families that are going to join her. And she gets a discount for being the hostess and taking roll and checking in at the zoo. And all she did was say when she wanted to go and then show up on time.
That's amazing.
We run field trips. And I will say, I like going on field trips. I like taking a field trip with my little homeschool. But running field trips is a lot of work and some stress. And so all the stressful parts, you just told me someone else would do
Right.
for that mom whose kid loves turtles, which my kid loves turtles. Can I be that mom?
That's right. That's right. And so our members love the way that that works because we've put together a plan. That infrastructure is there. We have a very short little orientation video that we ask you to watch before you submit your first field trip idea. And then our field trip admin, she'll handle all the details and she'll make sure that it's set up for you. You arrive with your checklist and everybody gets to have fun and you still get the discount. So it's kind of a triple win.
It is a triple win. Wow.
I was
That's
about
so
to say that
cool.
alone is like worth the membership to Unite.
Yes.
It truly is. And honestly, that's where, we have an amazing group leader up in Commerce. And when she realized about our field trip program, she said, "We are in." And it's been really great because it allows all of her amazing ideas for the things that are, in Athens or Gainesville or Commerce that she's been able to go and host the same things she was going to, but now she has, 20 families going rather than 3. And there's no stress about making the minimums. And she still has all the benefits and gets to share her passion about what she's learning and sharing with the community, and everybody benefits.
And if you've never run a field trip, the part about taking the money, I mean, that is
Stressful.
it's one of the more stressful parts. So the fact that you have this infrastructure through Unite that can do that without the messiness of Venmo and PayPal and all of that, and taking care of not just collecting it, but making sure the field trip excursion, the location gets the money. Like that piece is huge.
That's right. And anybody who's ever tried to collect money for, even just 10 families, they all want to pay in a different way. And then your husband freaks out when he sees a $500 payment to the zoo. What were you doing? Well, actually, you see all this other money that came in pays for it. It's okay. But actually one of the things that families may not realize is that if you have too many of those, the IRS starts wondering what's going on. And so, we are able to take all of those questions and unknowns and simplify your life because that is our whole, like, our mission is to eliminate isolation and uncertainty.
Mm.
And, if you're going to a field trip with a whole group, you're making friends, you're learning something, you're figuring it out together. And so, whatever we can do to help these mamas, that's really what we want to try to do.
So intentional.
So intentional. Wow. I am so impressed and I just can't wait to I want to even dig in further and go on the website and poke around. So is the website the best place to learn more? Or I know we're not doing Facebook. Are you on any other social media?
We do some things on Facebook and a little tiny bit on Instagram. We do have a YouTube channel that does have some videos and some event highlights, and certainly some helpful hints from homeschool mentors like Jennifer Henn and Michelle Newbold, who I know you probably know them as well. So, I would definitely go look at what's on YouTube. But honestly, yes, the website is the best thing for it. And, the free trial is a great way to just jump in and see what it's like and if it's a good fit. If
Yes.
you try it for a week and it's like, "No, that's not for us," that's okay, and it won't have cost you anything. You can cancel before it bills.
Love
I love
that.
that.
Around here, we like to wrap things up with a win. So we would love to celebrate a win with you, either, directly from your homeschooling or from Unite as a whole. We would love to celebrate with you.
Sure. Yeah. So each year we do a little bit of a survey for the families that are part of Unite. And it's always really heartwarming to hear back from the moms. But we had a student that filled out the survey because some of our students, whether it's an NCFCA family or a Beta Club family, those students also get access to the network so that they can be really plugged into the details of what they're participating in. And so it was one of our NCFCA students, and he had been involved for a while within Unite. And his feedback when we asked him what we could share with others was that Unite had changed his life. And that brought me to tears because I knew this teenager and he needed community
Yeah.
and he needed to be able to find his connections with others. And he's found leadership opportunities and he's found friends. And, it was really, really great to just get that feedback from him.
That's
So,
awesome.
yeah, that would be my big win, I think.
That's
That's so
amazing. Thank you for
beautiful.
sharing that. It is a win
Yes.
for, I mean, teenagers for him to be able to share his heart with you that way
Yeah.
is incredible. And that speaks volumes about what you've created. And I want to say, Angela, thank you for answering the call.
Yes. Oh my goodness, yes.
Saying yes. You
And
did
and
Thank
something
you.
beautiful.
for being that pioneer. And also, thank you so much for just being here with us today, giving of your time and sharing. I mean, you have spoken to my heart. I always say when we talk to the amazing women that we get to talk to, I feel like I'm getting my own little personal breakout session. And it's always so encouraging and inspiring. So I just want to thank you so much for chatting with us today and for letting everyone know how we can find out more and get involved with Unite Homeschool. And Kat, if people want to connect with you, how can they do that?
I'm on the socials at Recreating Camp and recreatingcamp.com. How about you, Kayla?
I'm at Scratch Made Simple _ on Instagram and at Scratch Made Simple on TikTok.
And you can find us at Homeschooling Down South on all the socials. You can also email us at hello@homeschoolingdownsouth.com. And if you liked this episode, we would love it if you could give us a rating and a review wherever you're listening. Also, if you loved this episode, our heart is just that you would share it with somebody who needs to hear it. Send it to a friend, send it to another homeschool mama, send it to someone who needs to know that there's community out there waiting for her. And that's truly the best rating or review that we could get ever. So we're so thankful to you listeners. We're so thankful to you, Angela, and we will see all of you next week.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you very much.
And we'll love together, we'll learn together, explore this whole wide world together, no matter where we are.